The Acura TLX Type S gets a refresh for the 2024 model year, and in this video I'll go over the changes for the 2024 model year, as well as talking about the exterior, the interior, how it drives, as well as the fuel economy you can expect, and the pricing and how it compares to the competition. But the cliff notes here is that they made so many good improvements for 2024. On paper, it's minor stuff. It doesn't seem like it adds up to a whole lot, but under the skin, there's actually a lot more changes that I've picked up on here that this vehicle has that they haven't even been advertising, and it's been made so much better in my opinion. So definitely stay tuned, especially for the driving segment. But as far as the styling goes, right up front there, the big change is that you have the frameless grille surround there, and you know, it still looks great. I still have to say that, at least, I know styling is subjective, but in my opinion, the TLX is hands down the most attractive sedan in this segment. I mean, it just has this long hood, and it's just so low and just so wide, and man, it just looks fantastic. You also get some new color options here for 2024, and one of them here is this urban gray pearl color, which is beautiful. If you're familiar with Honda paint colors, this is the same as Sonic Gray Pearl, just with a different name, but it is a very premium looking color. I mean, so much metallic flake, and I don't know if the camera really does it justice, but you have this like yellowy, purpley, sometimes bluish kind of flake here in this gray paint. I'm not one to, like gray colored vehicles, but this is certainly a step above any other gray color out there in my opinion. It looks so cool, especially here in the sunlight where that really pops. And especially with the black accents you have here on the Type S version with the wheels and the grille and all that, I mean, it really looks good. Coming down to the side, you still have the nice large Type S badge, the black mirror caps, and all the other same great stuff. You also do have some new wheels here. Now this one is running these 20s with the all seasons. Summer tires are now a dealer add-on. That is not something you can get from the factory anymore, unfortunately. But going out to the back, same as before, and I mean, it still looks fantastic. I love the taillights, I love the large exhaust tips, the proportions. Once again, this thing still just looks absolutely fantastic, and it even gets better on the inside. The interior of all 2024 TLXs get a really nice upgrade now with a larger 12.3-inch screen here. Unfortunately, it is still not a touchscreen. You still have to use the touchpad, but honestly, using the touchpad for this past week, it really isn't bad with Acura's own systems. I've said this in the past. It's not a deal breaker. It's just CarPlay that's a little more cumbersome because you then have to swipe through on this screen. But that's really the only thing. And honestly, this car is so good in my opinion that is worth living with, especially since you still have this wonderful assortment of hard buttons for climate control. And that's something that's getting more and more rare these days. So I really actually don't mind this setup. It does look like Acura is switching over to a touchscreen. We see that in the 2025 MDX. I'm assuming that'll come here to the TLX sooner or later as well, but for me this is totally fine. Definitely try it out at the dealer. Your mileage may vary, but also you get these wonderful 12.3-inch digital gauges, and they're really crisp with the graphics. I love this style. It was introduced again on the MDX Type S, and they're really nice. Now I do kind of miss, Acura had some really cool analog gauges, but I know that the whole industry is going to digital gauges being the upgrade and the newer thing. So, I can understand they want to be competitive, but I do miss the analog gauges just a little bit. But these are still great, and I also love when you put it into Sport and Sport Plus mode, the boost gauge comes on and the G meter, and you have the option to even see your super handling all-wheel drive. The only thing I will say though is that I wish that the left pod was also customizable, because otherwise it just says normal whenever you're in normal mode and you're just staring at the gauge cluster saying normal or comfort or whatever mode you're in. That's the only thing that's a little bit annoying. I wish there was some adjustments there, but strangely there isn't any, but maybe they'll code that in for a future model year. You also get a head-up display as standard here now in the TLX, as well as a 360 camera and also a wireless charging pad. Unfortunately, the wireless charging pad is pretty useless. I couldn't get my phone to charge for more than a few seconds, even without having any case on it or anything. It just seems like it's a very small surface area still for the actual charging portion, and just like I said, pretty much useless. I would just plug your phone in if you want reliable charging here in the car still. But otherwise, it continues with a fantastic ELS Studio 3D stereo that sounds amazing, has speakers on the roof, and this whole interior is really great. I love the red leather, still the perforation. You get the heated and cooled seats is standard, memory seats is standard. The only thing that it's strange the way Honda and Acura do a heated steering wheel. You have to always get it as a dealer installed accessory. It's only a few $100, but the fact there's no heated steering wheel from the factory with any of these Acuras is just still kind of odd to me. So this one, you know, hasn't gone to the dealer for that upgrade, so instead you just have a non-heated steering wheel. But that's the only minor thing, and again, an easily resolved thing if that is something that you want to do. Otherwise, you know, I already did a full deep dive interior back when this generation of the TLX came out. We did a deep dive, me and my wife, on this whole interior, so I will let you watch that if you want to hear all the details. But, you know, it doesn't have as much backseat space as, you know, some of the other competitors, but it's still totally fine. We even had our daughter's car seat in here, which is large, and I was able to have people up front here, you know, no problem still. So, you know, it's still totally usable. It's a great family sedan. You know, the trunk, you know, is totally fine, average size for the most part. It's, again, not one of the biggest in the segment, but totally fine. You just have, you know, the compromise there of that rear cross brace kind of hurting your practicality if you do want to drop the seats there. But otherwise, I really love this interior. It's nice and plush. It's super comfortable. These seats, these 16-way seats with adjustable bolstering, adjustable lumbar and thigh support are amazing seats. I love the cooling and all that. Just overall, a really nice interior. But let's start up and go for a drive. The TLX Type S has the Acura Type S key, which is a really nice key. It's really solid feeling with the metal here, and not too big, and just a really nice key. But of course, keyless access, keyless entry, push button start. So just the engine start button here, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the 2024 Acura TLX Type S. The first thing that I noticed, I was so excited and so surprised the first time I drove in this vehicle because according to the press release, the only thing that's changed from a driving standpoint is the fact that you have quicker response in Sport Plus mode, which we will try out here in a minute. But there's way more going on, because if you remember from my last TLX Type S video, there's a few things I complained about. The throttle response was kind of laggy back then. The ride was a little firm sometimes, and you know, just there's a few things like that. The transmission was a little rough. All of it has been fixed. All of it. You know, the first time I got on the gas, I'm like, wow, it's immediate, instant response. The transmission's always in the right gear. It's always smooth. And before, it just seemed like, you know, it was a little unpolished for that first, you know, pre-refreshed version of the TLX Type S, in my opinion. Maybe it was just the first model year. Maybe they improved these things in the second model year. I haven't sampled it since, you know, these first came out. But man, like, mind blown. I'm like, wow, they did so much more improvement here than I thought they did in this vehicle. So all those things are great. I also think the ride is slightly smoother. Again, I didn't see anything saying that is the case, but it just is as smooth as a regular TLX Advance when it had those adaptive dampers and those back in the day. It's like that level of smoothness here. There is zero compromise for the Type S. Total comfort. I love driving around in this vehicle all week. It is so smooth. It coddles you in comfort, but yet it has, you know, great handling, and you don't need a stiff ride in order to get that good handling either. Also, interestingly, the steering seems like it's gotten a little bit slower. Now, as far as the steering ratio, it's still a variable rack that goes from 12.1 to 1 to 12.6 to 1. That hasn't changed between, you know, 2021 and 2024 here. But I think the tuning of how it ramps up between those two ratios is what is the difference, because it used to have like steering so quick on, you know, off center that it was like Alfa Romeo Giulia levels of quickness. It seems like it has been slightly dulled. It's still fantastic steering, but that's the one change. I'm like, oh, like steering seems a little slower from my memory. But anyway, let's go ahead and put it up into that Sport Plus mode and see about the response here, which, I mean, was really laughable. It was like a multi-second delay in the prior version, but now let's see. Okay, took it a split second still, but much better than last time. And man, this thing pulls, and it also feels like it might pull slightly harder. I'm not sure, again, if they just, you know, the way they retune things or what, but I also think, maybe this is my imagination, but it also sounds slightly better to me than my memory of the last TLX Type S. But yeah, this thing is punchy. So still runs the 3-liter turbocharged V6 engine. It does still 355 horsepower, 354 pound-feet of torque. And 0 to 60 though has dropped by 0.3 seconds compared to the pre-refresh, which also you know, suggests that there is more going on behind the scenes here. Whether it is just that faster response from the Sport Plus mode that allows this to take off harder or what, but it's improved. And honestly, I mean, again, it's been a few years since I drove it, so I'm not able to do a back-to-back comparison comparison here, but just felt really good to me. And I think slightly more eager is the word, you know, a more eager feeling than before, not only with the throttle, but also with the way it builds boost, and it just feels really good. I mean, my first drive in this thing for this 2024 version, I just fell in love with it. It'll also put down a 13.3 second quarter mile time and has 156 mile per hour top speed. But, you know, and also I always have to commend Acura and Honda for their suspension tuning with these adaptive dampers, because, you know, even in Sport Plus mode here, you know, it's firmer, but it's not crazy still like some other stuff. Like this same week I had a Mercedes GLA 35, so stiff and uncomfortable for the ride. This is so good, yet still so dynamic and nice and quiet in here too. This road usually generates a lot more road noise. Nice and quiet, so refined here on the TLXs. But anyway, come up some corners here that I always take. Let's see how the TLX Type S handles. So, diving in. It actually moves a little bit on under acceleration and braking there a little bit. So the reason why is the fact that this one is running these Pirelli all-season tires. The last TLX I had for the Type S had summer tires on it. Summer tires are no longer a factory option. It's a dealer-installed thing. That, oh, but man, the torque vectoring all-wheel drive system in these is amazing. But anyway, so now you're going to spend, it's over $3,000 for the lightweight wheels that also come with those summer tires all together. And you know, it's an expensive upcharge there, but I mean, you know, summer tires aren't cheap, and, you know, lightweight wheels at $2,000, you know, for 20-inch wheels or whatever, is a pretty good bargain, I'd say, as well. So, you know, but it's just unfortunate. Before it was like, I think, $800 for a summer tire upgrade. Now it's this big expensive thing. And I mean, obviously the handling limits are just lower. So, you know, last time I was in a TLX Type S, you know, I was able to just grip and go. And this time, you know, there was a little bit of, you know, tire squealing and just, you know, tires that just weren't up to the task quite as much as before. That's an easy thing to fix. Obviously, you can pick out your favorite tires and put them on these wheels, or again, go for the dealer package if you'd like. But it's still fine. Just, you know, it's just a tire thing. That's entirely to blame. This car still handles amazingly well with this torque vectoring rear diff, which I adore, because it's one of the torque vectoring rear diffs you can really feel it working. It's true torque vectoring. It sends up to 70% of the power to the rear, torque to the rear, and then 100% of that 70% to whatever individual wheel it needs to. It can send up to 100% to one of those wheels to really overdrive that inside, you know, rear wheel and really make this so dynamic. And I mean, I said in my original TLX Type S review it had mind-blowing handling. I still stand by that. I think for this one, it needs summer tires to retain that crown of mind-blowing handling, but it's still so good. And I mean, these also, you know, they're not the lightest out there. These weigh about 4,200 pounds. But it still feels so nice and light, and especially like this in the Sport Plus mode, you have a little bit of a heavier steering, but, you know, I have like my individual mode set up for the comfort suspension and the normal steering effort, but giving me that, you know, sport kind of engine response. And that's a great thing with the individual mode, is you can have that, or you can have any of the other modes in between the sport mode, you know, as a kind of a happy medium as well. But I just love that even in normal mode, you know, unlike, there's some other vehicles these days, you got to drive them in sport mode for it to actually feel like it's alive. This thing, like, even in normal mode, I was cruising all week and just was able to have that response when I needed it without having to fiddle with a drive mode selector. I just instantly, like, put my foot down, got an instant response. You know, it was snappy, it was great. And even in a normal, you know, suspension setup, you know, it was still so dynamic, felt so good. It's the perfect sports sedan in my eyes, and I think it's very underrated still. You know, everyone talks about the M340i's. I get a million questions all the time about M340i's all the time. Everyone's talking about that car. To be fair, I have not driven the M340i version. I've only done the regular 330, but this is like, no one talks about this car, and I don't know why, because it is fantastic. The handling is mind-blowing. Literally, if you live anywhere where there's corners, take it on one test drive around your favorite corners, and I think you're going to be sold. It is that good, and it continues to be that good here for 2024. And I realized last time I forgot to put it in the sport mode for the transmission setup as well. So now I have that in sport as well. Let's give it another go. Okay, so instant response, but still not full boost. It still holds back. I'm guessing that, you know, like first and second gear probably can't handle full boost, you know, from this. So it still wants to limit you a little bit there. Doesn't rip your head off immediately and launch as hard as, you know, many of those German competitors do. So they're going to definitely feel harder pulling off the line. But then once this thing, you know, gets up to, you know, 25 or so, and you can really get that full boost kicking in there, then it pulls really hard, you know, right up there with the best of them. And And I love the way this motor sounds too. It's so good. I mean, it doesn't have any crackles or pops or anything, but whenever you have the transmission in its sport mode, I mean, it wants us to hang out at, you know, $4.5, $5 grand, and it's just sitting there. So, you know, it's nice that you have the ability to have, you know, the sport response with the powertrain, but have the transmission doing a separate thing, because a lot of others don't separate that out, and it's like, well, if I want Sport Plus mode, I gotta sit at $5 grand all the time. This doesn't force you to do that. You can have that option if that's something you want to do, but I love that they separate that out still. Yeah, steering though, even though it's, you know, maybe not as fast as what I remember it being before, and it's still not as fast as an Alfa Romeo Giulia, which still I think is, you know, right up there with this as, you know, one of the handling kings in this segment in my opinion. But you know, it still is great steering, still has good feel for electronic power steering in my opinion. Really a lot of feel through it, and very communicative, and, you know, still nicely weighted, and still nice and quick too. And I'm going to try some manual shifts here, because this 10-speed usually has a mind of its own, and it still does. Alright, so it immediately wants me to go into second. It does not like using first gear whatsoever, even whenever you're trying to force it into that. It was short shifting, which is strange. I mean, I guess it's just maybe this transmission still is, you know, really at its capacity here with this motor, so they just got to protect it or something. But downshifts are nice and quick. We'll try an upshift here in a minute as well. But man, yeah, this thing is so dynamic. And another downshift. Fortunately, we've caught up to traffic, which is something when you have something that handles as good as this, that it's going to be a common complaint, is getting stuck behind slow cars. But you know, upshifts felt pretty good there too. So yeah, you know, I just wish there was a little more faithful to what exactly you wanted it to do in manual mode there. But you know, this is so well programmed that honestly, I don't think you need to bother with the manual mode. Just let it do its thing in automatic mode, and I think you're set. The real magic is with this true torque vectoring diff is going slightly uphill, which is what we're doing here now. Before we were slightly downhill, but yeah, especially man, when you are going uphill, this thing, just the way that it zips around corners, oh, I love it. It is, oh, it's so good. It's so good. I love this handling. I got giddy last time with this thing with the handling as well, but this time, honestly, I mean, the all seasons, yes, you have slightly lower limits, but it's a little more playful. I don't know, I'm kind of now being like, maybe I actually like, you know, having less grip with the all seasons, because it allows the back end to be a little more playful. Definitely some pros and cons there. I was expecting it to just be a downside, but I could see actually it being a little more fun here with that, with the all seasons there. So, yeah, just such a good handling car still. Again, it does not get enough credit. Everyone looks at the numbers on paper. They see that it's got 59% of the weight in the front and, you know, 41 in the rear. You know, not a great weight distribution story, but it masks it all so well. Then once you slow down and get back to just calmly cruising behind traffic here, you put it back into the normal mode. And it's just so smooth, so quiet, so serene really, but again, has those razor sharp responses the second that you need them, and it does it all so well. And yeah, I also love the nice low seating position in these two. It really feels like you're sitting lower than some of the other competitors, and so I mean, it just glides along, and it's just this sleek, low, awesome looking, you know, wide hood. Visibility is totally fine too, by the way. I mean, it's not the best out there probably, but I mean, this A-pillar isn't really that big of an issue. Mirrors are off onto the doors, view out of the back is great. It's all just, you know, very easy to live with, and now having the 360 camera makes it even easier with navigating tight spots and things like that. And so, yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite vehicles as far as luxury sports sedans go. All right, so now we're out on the highway here in the Type S, and it's a great highway cruiser as well, you know, pretty nice and refined here. And what I love also is, you know, you have adaptive cruise control standard, all the safety stuff is standard, everything. Anything you can think of is standard here in this, you know, lane keep assist, all that kind of stuff. And the adaptive cruise system works great, which also, again, is standard. And what I really love about it, and Acura's implementation here with the Acura Safety Suite or whatever, is with the head-up display, it does a really good job of showing you, you know, when it's giving you assistance with the road lines and when it isn't. And there's a really good visualizer here on the digital gauges now, which shows you exactly what it sees as far as the cars and the road. It's very like Tesla-like with that visualization, something that a lot of other car companies haven't, you know, copied yet, but I think it's really good just to give you reassurance of, you know, that the car is seeing what you're seeing, that it knows what's going on, and that really gives you that extra confidence, you know, to trust the car's capabilities a little bit more. Now, Honda and Acura have always done one of the best lane keep assist systems in my opinion, and we have a gentle corner here coming up we can test it on. I'm not expecting to be let down or anything, but just kind of hovering my hands on the wheel, letting it do most of the steering here for me, and yeah, it's doing totally fine, not ping-ponging or anything, keeping me, you know, right towards the center of my lane for the most part here. Yeah, did that totally good. So yeah, and I did try it out earlier in the week too, but I love the head-up display because it's such large fonts and, you know, very, very, very clear with exactly what's going on, and combined with the gauge cluster now. Really good communication with the driver, which I think is really rare, honestly, these days. So really great from that standpoint. Again, the fact that all the safety stuff is standard. You know, Acura they introduced this with this generation TLX in general, but you have you know, their next gen airbags and a lot of other, you know, very advanced things to you know, really focus on not only just the tech safety stuff, but also the crash safety. And I think that's something a lot of other companies either gloss over, don't want to talk about. Acura and Honda are proud to talk about that stuff, and, you know, someone who really values safety, that's really a great reassurance, and, you know, really great to see. And so, I mean, some of the most advanced airbags and, you know, all that kind of stuff, and so just gives you extra confidence, extra peace of mind here behind the wheel. Fuel economy for the Type S here is 19 mpg in the city, 25 on the highway, and 21 combined. And I think last time I got like 17.4 mpg. This time I was able to do more driving, and also I did a closer to a 50-50 split of highway and city around town. And so my final fuel economy average this time has been 20.2. And so I'm just one under the combined figure. I'm overperforming the city rating, even though I got on this vehicle, I was having fun with it, but also doing, you know, some cruising on the highway and all that too. But, you know, 20 mpg for this level of performance, this, you know, level of comfort, refinement, all that, it's not amazing, but, you know, to me it's not bad either. Very, you know, livable. I don't really have any complaints with that personally. And then, you know, the last thing to mention though is pricing and how it compares to the competition. And that is another area where I think this vehicle is very underrated and a very compelling option. Now, it has, you know, grown in price over the years, just like everything else, you know, with inflation and all that doing its thing, and just natural, you know, price increases over the years. And so for 2024, it's about $1,250 more expensive than last year. But I mean, back when I reviewed these in 2021, they were like, you know, 54 grand. Now this one as tested is 59,000 and doesn't even have, you know, those summer tires and the lighter wheels like that other one had. And so $59,000, yes, is an increase, but 59 is still under all of the competitors except the Genesis G70. The G70 with the 3.3T motor, that is still coming in around $700 less than this. And, you know, that has some perks going for it. You know, it has a touchscreen, and there's a few other things. It gets a slight bit more horsepower, but I think the handling isn't as good in the G70. I think that this interior, even though it might not be quite as plush, you can get quilted seats and all that in the Genesis, but to me, this interior feels a little bigger inside. It's a little bit of a bigger vehicle in general than the G70. If you want something a little more compact feeling, you know, on the outside, I think G70 could definitely be great. And again, it's a great vehicle, still very fast. I adore the G70, and it's also one of my favorites in this segment that also I think doesn't get enough credit. But to me, I feel like I would rather have this for just $700 more personally. You know, the stereo's better in this. There's a few other little things like that. But outside of that G70, this is the clear winner as far as value in this segment goes, because all the other stuff, which might be a little bit faster for the 0 to 60, might be a little bit more plusher, or, you know, have the more prestigious badging or whatever, they're all way more expensive. The only one that I also really love that, you know, might be worth a little bit extra money is the Cadillac CT5V. That has the fantastic magnetic ride control, which is also very good. That also has a slightly better sounding exhaust, but I think now their 10-speed actually isn't tuned quite as well as this is. We will see. There's a refresh for the CT5 also coming for 2025 here. It's a beautiful new 33-inch curved display on the inside and some nice freshened up styling and stuff. I'm hoping to test one of those later this year and see what that's like. But, you know, at least as far far as 2024s goes, I mean, those are still about $5,000 more expensive than this. And, you know, it's hard to say that that's, you know, a nicer vehicle. I think it does handle maybe ever so slightly better, just as the chassis is better. It's a rear-wheel drive base platform, has better balance and all that. But, you know, aside from that, I mean, the only other thing about the Cadillac I will say lastly is that it does have Super Cruise available, but it's another $4,600 extra as part of a big package in order to get Super Cruise. That pushes those up to 60 grand. Now, I'd still rather have that over all the German competitors that are about, you know, that, you know, $70,000 price tag or whatever. But, you know, that's going to be the highway driving champ. If you do a lot of highway miles, Super Cruise and a CT5 is going to be an unbeatable combo because it gives you true hands-free driving. So the CT5 is the only other one I really love in this segment. Otherwise, Audi S4 is good. That's $68,000. You know, you look at like any kind of M340i, those are also, you know, like $67,000. You look at a Mercedes C43 AMG, which I think now has a 4-cylinder in it, that is going to be $71,000. All those German competitors are, you know, basically 10 grand more expensive. And so, you know, that's where this still, you know, makes a ton of sense in a huge discount to have, you know, still a 6-cylinder engine with a turbo, tons of power, all the luxury you could really want, great looks once again. And, you know, I think bolder styling, you know, the S4 has been around for a while for this generation, very subdued. M340i, you know, they've freshened it up, but, you know, they're getting a little more polarizing with the BMW designs these days. And the Mercedes, again, makes some interesting changes with the powertrain and stuff. So, I don't know, everyone's kind of in this interesting position where I think the Acura can really capitalize on, you know, the more traditional setup, fantastic driving dynamics, a great interior that, again, still retains those physical controls that all the others are throwing out. I think there's a lot going for the TLX Type S, in addition to the fact that it's also cheaper than everything other than the G70. And so overall, I love the TLX, and personally, the handling is so much better than the G70. I would pay the $700 extra for this over that. This would be my pick if I wanted a luxury sports sedan. Hands down, no question about it. Not like a tough choice for me. It's absolutely this all day, every day, easy decision in my mind. So anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the you know, TLX Type S. Overall, it's very well done. I love these enhancements for 2024, and definitely worth a test drive if you didn't love the TLX initially when they first came out. Oh, that motor sounds so good. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the TLX Type S in the comments below. Huge thanks to Acura for providing me here with this TLX Type S to review for you guys today. Yes, thank you all very much for watching once again. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.